Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. They say that he who lives by the crystal ball eats broken glass. So do take my predictions for what the new normal might look like and when it might occur with at least 3 grains of salt. And the reason for that is because there's so many factors that can't be accounted for. I mean, nobody would have predicted that COVID would have happened, yet suddenly it popped onto the scene, and nobody would have predicted that more aggressive variants would pop to the scene, because usually, previously, these kind of viruses the mutations got weaker, not stronger. So we don't know what the future holds in terms of not just more aggressive variants, how well the rollout worldwide of vaccines are, how effective they are in the intermediate and long term. There's reports that the immunity may last, and there are various reports. I'm not even going to say, but certainly not lifetime immunity. Is an annual shot be enough? Will we get enough compliance? What will be the next scourge? And I'm not just talking about scourges of some new bacteria or virus. It could be man-made, like in bioterrorism, or the more often thought of cyber terrorism. Invading our electrical grid, good old-fashioned terrorism, people blowing up trains and planes and bringing planes bashing them into the Empire State Building or whatever. And then myriad things we can't even begin to understand. Certainly one more point about pandemics. Before the 1918 to 20 flu pandemic, people were not very mobile, so it was very difficult to transmit diseases across borders. But now people fly everywhere, and so it's very easy for a strain in South Africa to become a strain in America, as has been the case. At least I want to be careful. It may not, we call it a South African strain because it was first identified in South Africa. It's unclear whether it was transmitted from South Africa to here or whether that simplest strain just popped up here in the United States. So let me be careful about that. Okay, in any case, that's pretty granular, and let's get a little more macro. The point is, it's unclear if and when we will ever get back to any semblance of a normal, new or otherwise. But here's my best guess. My guess is that there will be surprises in both the virus, some new virus, vaccinations, length of immunity conferred, degree of immunity conferred, side effects in the intermediate and long term. After all, the vaccines have only been around for certainly a lot less than a year. We don't know. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I do plan to take the vaccine, no question. But, there is a lot of unknowns. But here are some thoughts as to what the new normal will look like. My best guesses. I'm not going to make wild, dazzling predictions that are off the wall because it would sound exciting and impressive. Most of these are fairly incremental. The first, I'm going to talk about some predictions for what a new normal might look like. First, regarding work, which is my kind of core expertise. I'm a career counselor. No surprise, there will be more virtuality. Many employers are realizing that they don't need as many workers there 5 days a week, that there can indeed be good communication and accountability remotely. And it will save the company a lot of money, which of course is their favorite activity, and that's true of nonprofits and even government. You don't have to use that real estate to house people. People are going to be at home. By the way, from a fairness perspective, it really seems to me like the savings that companies are going to accrue from not having such a big corporate headquarters be distributed to the worker who's going to be giving part of his or her house or apartment to work. Next, certainly all that virtuality is going to mean less traffic. That's going to mean when you do have to go to work 1 day a week, 2 days a week, or just for personal things, it's going to be more reliably. You can get somewhere not only quicker, but more reliably. I know this, when I go and visit somebody, it used to take somewhere between 55 and 95 minutes. Now I'm reliably there in 45 minutes. So it's both the virtuality, one of the few silver linings in COVID is less traffic. And I think we'll continue in this era of more virtuality, less, showing up at the office. It's going to be less traffic. It also means that you should be able to count on, if you're in a typical white-collar job, that you're going to be working in your own home office. And so it's important that you make it comfy, ergonomically comfortable, the chair, the right height of the keyboard, right height of the monitor, and also just that it's pleasant, that it's decorated the way you like so you feel comfy there, whether it be a little oriental rug in the middle of the room or better lighting. Lighting matters a lot, both for aesthetics and for eye strain. The right pictures on the wall, maybe a more functional desk for you or whatever. That could be a well spent investment. And again, I would be trying to hit up my company for that, because it is, it's not a desk they have to buy. It's one less desk that they have to buy. Job seekers. You really, I think, increasingly are going to need to prove that you can work remotely. So you want to talk about previous examples of either during the pandemic or before, where you were able to be self-motivated. And if you've got kids, they're not allowed to ask about kids, but there's always the question, boy, is that worker going to be more focused on the kids? So it'd be wise for you to preempt it. Say, yes, I have 3 kids, 2 kids, and we've got very clear rules that my kids do follow about separation of church and state, home and work. Where are the jobs going to be? No surprise, as part of this virtuality thing, there's going to be an increase in IT jobs. We all know that while Zoom and Skype work remarkably well, the bigger the group, the more there can be issues. IT jobs also in training people how to work virtually, not just get on Zoom, but how to best use Zoom, how to well use the chat rooms, how to use various other features, which are getting more and more robust as Zoom realizes that their business model is going to be a dominant one, and if they're expecting people to pay for it and not just use the free version, I suspect there's going to be a lot of features and there'll be jobs in IT. Government. The Biden administration has clearly made clear that they want to increase size of government, especially in its 3 areas. Immigration, climate change, and that's going to include transportation infrastructure, it's going to include research and development funding, and programs for the poor of all sorts, from healthcare to food stamps to housing, quote, support, transportation support, and there is always in government a large bureaucracy to address all that. And this is something I've said for years, but it's certainly going to be as true now as ever, the last bastion of fully benefited, full-time, relatively secure jobs is going to be government. Because likely the Biden administration is going to put ever more burdens on businesses to, for example, regulations, worker rights, health care paid for by employers, that more and more and raise minimum wage to $15 an hour. More and more employers are going to say, it's just not worth hiring. We're going to automate or simply not grow. We're going to just do with fewer people. And those we're going to hire are going to be part-time, temp, project-based, rather than full-time with security of employment and rights of wrongful termination suits, extended rights of wrongful termination suits. So that's all by way of saying that the government, especially the federal government, that can always print more money, is going to keep growing. I also believe that state governments, even though they can print more money, in a liberal administration, there's no way that the federal government is going to let, for example, the state of California go bankrupt, or Massachusetts or New York. So they will bail out those state governments, and therefore the state government's going to be able to hire as well. And the state government is really what a wonderful deal is generally a wonderful deal. It's an old myth that pay in government is lower than in the private sector, but a federal study by the GAO, the General Accountability Office, I believe, found that indeed for the same work, except at the very highest levels, government workers are paid slightly more than in the private sector. So government may be the best deal in town. Also, I should mention, they have lots of paid holidays, paid vacation, even in many cases a pension, which is, an employer-paid pension, which is is rare in the private sector. Okay, other areas where the jobs are likely to be. Unfortunately, the big gets bigger, especially in the world of businesses. And with all these more regulations, the small mom and pops are going to go out of business. Too many more of them. As we saw, I love books, and so I'm seeing these independent bookstores struggle as everybody buys their books on Amazon. It used to be Barnes & Noble. Now it's, Amazon to a much lesser extent. It's going to be Barnes & Noble and here in my area, there's a chain called Copperfield Books. But anyway, the point is, it's safer if you're looking for stability. And many people, there are some people who like the freedom of being able to go from job to job, but most people like a measure of security. Well, the most secure companies are going to be what is called in the financial services industry category killers, the clear leader in the field. So Amazon, of course, for online purchasing, Procter and Gamble for basic products, Johnson and Johnson for things medical, Home Depot which put a ton of hardware stores out of business, mom and pop hardware stores out of business, and Alphabet, that was the former Google. They're not going anywhere. Facebook, I think, will also stay with us. It seems to be quite robust now for quite a long time. But working in whatever industry for a category killer may be the best advice in the new normal that we're going to be facing. Just a little word about politics. It is my belief that the GOP is dead. Conservatism is dead in the United States. There are a number of vectors, that is forces, that are moving everything leftward. It is different birth rates, different immigration rates, the media bias, and the policies that the liberal government is putting in place to ensure maximum voter turnout, which tends to support liberals, motor voter, mail-in voting, D.C. and Puerto Rico being the 51st and 52nd state, fast track to legalization of illegal immigrants. Those are all vectors, and the higher ed, all society's mind molders, the schools, the colleges, the media are quite liberally biased, and so that's going to also move voting trends leftward. And so I really think that the GOP, even if it tries to appear moderate or be moderate, I think is dead. I think we're going to I think it's fair to say that liberal is going to be the new conservative. In other words, we used to call people conservative. Now the liberals will be considered conservative, and the new liberal will be full-on socialists. One guy's opinion. Could be wrong. Anyway, I think I will let you know what you're listening to. You're listening to How to Do Life. I'm Marty Nemko. I'm making an attempt at predicting what a new normal will look like. I do not think it's going to be something that's going to happen very quickly. If we're very lucky, it could be by the end of the year, but it could be as late as 2024. There's too many unknowns that cannot be predicted in advance. In any case, when I come back, I'm going to talk about healthcare predictions, women and minority issues, virtuality as applied in social situations sexually, virtuality as applied to recreation, the replacement of religiosity by spirituality. So there's a lot more. I hope you will stay with me. I'll be back in about 15 seconds. Thank you for staying with me. Healthcare. Good news, bad news. There's little question that one of the Biden administration's priorities is going to be some version of healthcare for all, Medicare for all, socialized medicine, nationalized healthcare. Depending on your bias, you're going to label it as you will. But the bottom line is that ever more people are going to be covered, whether they can pay or they can't, or whether they do pay or they don't. And already the system, the healthcare system, is absolutely overwhelmed. The latest statistics are that 195,000 people every year die in hospitals alone because of medical errors. That can only increase as you get ever more people, quote, covered, and those who will be newly covered are disproportionately have higher use of and higher need of medical care. They're more likely to be of gang violence. They're more likely to be obese. They're more likely to abuse drugs. They're more likely to smoke cigarettes. And so the system is going to be very, very taxed. The good news is that everybody, by virtue of being a human being, is going to get at least a basic level of coverage, maybe equal coverage for everybody, which I think is where we're headed, if I'm reading the tea leaves right. The bad news is that people who were accustomed to getting quality health care are going to have less access because they're going to be competing with many more people who have potentially higher needs for relatively the same number of doctors, nurses, etc. So one prediction I have is going to be that healthcare access and quality will improve for the poor. It will decline for others. Next sociological prediction. And again, this is not some bold, brilliant prediction. It's merely an observation of a trend that seems to be accelerating, and that is this is women and minorities era. I never would have imagined in my lifetime that badass women and badass minorities would be extolled, and that white males would be assailed, that their accomplishments are largely a function of white male privilege. Where I have a problem is, what the hell if I have a son, I'm white, and if I had a son who's a kid or a teenager, what do I tell him? Do I tell him this is, payback? This is, suck it up, kid? Do I say it's fair? Do I say, like blacks used to say to their children, you got to work twice as hard to go half as far? I don't know what I would say as my teenager watches all the shows showing spunky, wonderful women and minorities putting white males, who are usually rich, in their place, usually sleazy or lame. I don't know what I would say. I just don't know. That's one of the many areas in life that I'm not clear what the hell to do about it. Anyway, more predictions. Again, back to the virtuality theme, which I think will continue, because whatever it is, the next thing, some nuclear attack, some cyber attack, some not cyber attack, nuclear attack or bioweapons attack, and the simply cost control, there's going to be ever more virtuality. People are going to be spending more time at home. And so companies will spend more on developing video games that are ever more immersive. I picture the modern family room being where a wall is, all the walls and the ceiling and the floor are big screens. Screen costs, have come way down and will continue to come way down. And so we will have these immersive environments where people can, when they enter the room, they can be inside a human cell, or they can be in outer space, or they can be in a jungle. And I think so there'll be more compelling reasons to stay home and enjoy this instead of, I love sitting in front of my big screen TV with my wife, binge watching, whatever. We're watching All Things Great and Small on PBS, and we love the Call the Midwife. And that's just plain old TV, essentially, on a bigger screen. But I think these immersive, truly interactive experiences, these rooms, will be, that's not coming tomorrow. But as I'm seeing, I remember when I bought my 65-inch TV, maybe 10 years ago, it was $2,000. Now a 65-inch TV is $500. That's down 75%. I can't imagine it won't continue to come down. Same is true of solar panels, by the way. Okay. I also think that we're seeing an endless plethora of original movies and TV series created by Netflix and Amazon, HBO. I think that's going to continue. And so we'll have an ever greater choice of movies and TV series to watch in our recreation, which is going to keep us in our little cocoon, tempt us to keep in our cocoon. Now, there are some people who are extroverts who just love getting out, going dancing, and going to parties and traveling. There'll be certainly some of that. It'll be in a way like the Roaring '20s. After this shutdown, there'll be people exploding to get out and essentially be like flappers and live it up big in the 20s, like instead of our 2020s instead of the 1920s, where the Roaring '20s referred to. But I think there'll be such seductive at-home recreations that ever more people are going to choose to stay home and enjoy those miracles of technology, those unsung heroes who created all that stuff. It's a miracle to me that I can sit down. When I was growing up, I used to a series when I was a child. I liked a series called Car 54, Where Are You? It was on a half hour a week. I'd have to wait a whole week. Now I can binge watch and watch a whole season, in a couple of days. It's kind of fun. Very fun. Not kind of fun. It's fun. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about is decreased religiosity, increased spirituality. Man and woman, of course, humankind, has forever felt the need to have something bigger to believe in than the quotidian. Quotidian is a fast word for the day-to-day mundanity of getting up, going to work, going home, watching TV, having a glass of wine, and going to sleep. People need to feel like something matters, that there is either, if they're quite religious, they believe in an omniscient, omnipotent God that is a deity who's looking down on them and is loving and whatever. But more commonly, they simply like the idea of religion, that it provides an ethical set of foundations, a community and a church, so on and so forth. But the Pew Trust found a couple of years ago that the fastest growing religion is no religion, because there is an endless, and I think I'll just make an opinion here, fair assault on religion. It is pretty absurd to think that there is, in an era where millions and millions of people die of horrific diseases, including infants born with horrible diseases, and they live in agony for a few weeks and then die, or leaving bereft parents, or tsunamis and earthquakes and pandemics like COVID. Could a loving God allow that and say that's free will? I don't think so. So I think that message has been certainly communicated by the media. You watch any movie or whatever, and it's usually the religious person. They have him with a big cross, and there's a light shining, so we see the cross. And he or she is usually portrayed as stupid, usually with a Southern accent, which again, there's a terrific anti-Southern bias, which so much in the media. But in any case, the point is, the public, I think, is getting ever less religious. Not I think, as again, per the Pew Trust studies, religiosity is down. But people continue to have an endless need for something bigger than themselves. So I think secular humanism. I'm not talking about different kinds of spirituality, like crystals in the world will provide and say affirmations. No, but I think there'll be more of a focus on secular humanism. People will find this greater sense of meaning by saying, I care about what happens to the planet. I care what happens to the world. And that doesn't have to be a liberal. We normally think about caring about the planet as being a liberal ideology. There are plenty of conservatives who care about the planet. They just have different ideas about the smartest, most cost-effective way to try to save our planet, for example, or to help people. Liberals will believe that, that, for example, strict restrictions on our carbon footprint are critical. Conservatives are more likely to say, hey, all of that is going to hurt our quality of life too much. Let's put our investments in things like in nuclear and more efficient solar and so on and so forth. It is well beyond this conversation to say who is right. But the one thing I can say is I truly wish that the left and right could listen to each other without so demonizing, let alone censoring. The cancel culture is alive and well. It is McCarthyism from the left. Again, something I never in my life would have thought I would have seen. In any case, so I'm just going to briefly summarize. Of course, the big theme for a new normal is, A, we don't know really how quickly it's going to occur, whether it's going to be incremental, whether it's going to be a sudden change, probably incremental, and it could be in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Nobody knows. Even Fauci was on TV. He said he doesn't know. There's too many uncontrollable variables, too many things that are unknown. But the big theme certainly is increased virtuality. Many people are finding it such a hassle to go to work through the traffic and sitting in a loud cube farm, and they love the flexibility and the better childcare, easier childcare if they're working at home. So, and companies will save money, and nonprofits will save money by not needing such a huge headquarters. I do think, and this liberal side of me, I think employers should be forced to give workers who are working at home some of the money or all the money that they save from not having to have such a fancy corporate office or having a large corporate office in the expensive downtowns. Jobs are going to be mainly, I believe the growth in jobs will be mainly in government, especially regarding immigration, climate change, programs for the poor, which are the priorities for the Biden administration. In the private sector, you're safest working for category killer companies. That is clearly those that seem to be have the dominant market share. Whether it be Amazon online, Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, Home Depot, Alphabet, etc. I think healthcare will indeed, you will have increased access for the poor, and because the system is already overwhelmed, decrease access and quality for other people. Women and minorities, I see this is not as a pendulum, but I see this as an accelerative trend. This is women and minorities era, and I am left stuck as to what to say to white male job seekers, or if I had a child who was a white male and seeing really pretty much the endless portrayal of white males as boors or idiots, and women always being beaten, almost always being beaten by spunkier, smarter, more ethical women and minorities. I have no idea what to say to white males in this situation. I'm stuck. We will see decreased religiosity, increased spirituality, and those are my best half-baked ideas on the likely new normal. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I'm Marty Nemko. If you're watching this on YouTube, this is I make a YouTube video as the basis for the podcast. that you'll be able to see on, go to How to Do Life Simplecast if you'd like to listen to this on, on your iPhone or whatever. But if you're watching this on YouTube, I certainly welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments, and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.